Good afternoon. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to our Digital Evolution Institute conference. We want to thank you so much for participating. And just want to make sure that we're about to get started with the next panel. Very super exciting panel, the future of real estate. And we do have a today very special two real estate legend and global icon. Mr. Joe Williams, co-founder of Keller Williams, and then also Mr. Bill Shopop from Shopop Realty Investment. That we're very honored and excited to welcome you both here, and would love to hear more about your story and your views. If you can share with our community of family offices, investors, and then also fund managers. So let's start with Joe. If you can share with us a little bit about, intro to the audience, sure. And would love to hear more about you.
Sure. My story is pretty easy. In fact, Bill and I are laughing. We haven't seen each other in about 15 years. Bill had worked for us back in Austin. Golly, it would have been 20 years ago.
More like 30.
More like 30 years ago. It's what happens when you get our age, you forget. We started Keller Williams in Austin, Texas, Gary Keller and myself. And that was 1983. And they didn't used to use the word disrupt. We didn't even know what that word was. But that basically is what we did with the real estate industry. And it really had nothing to do with the buyers and sellers. It had everything to do with how we as brokers interact with our agents. Anyhow, concept worked really well. We started franchising in '89, and today we are the largest privately owned real estate franchise in the world. We have 200,000 agents spread across 62, sorry, we've added a bunch, 62 countries, and we have about 2,700 commercial agents. We've added some. And they're primarily spread across the United States. We're the largest volume producer in the United States, according to whose report you read. We like to read our report. Take it away, Bill.
I'm Bill Shopop. I'm president and CEO of Shopop Realty Investments. I did, at one point, we actually had the first Keller Williams commercial franchise in the United States in 1992 in Austin, Texas. About 5 months after I started that office, I opened up a company called Asset Recovery Fund, which I continue to own today, although we've rebranded with the Shopop name. I'm proud to say I started that company with 3 partners, a $250 investment on the part of each one, and I bought the last partner out in 2004, and my wife Cindy and I own the company ourselves. We have about 75 people working for us based down in Orange County and Irvine, do business throughout the United States and a little bit of international business, but mostly the United States. And we work across kind of all the food groups. We own a little bit of office, retail, or we actually own quite a bit of retail, but it's retail that's intended to be something else. We develop apartments and sell land to home builders, and we're also building a little hotel in Las Vegas on the Strip.
Thank you very much, Joe and Bill. So my name is Phoebe Van Tran, and I am the CEO and the co-founder of Infinity Global Capital Partners. And we specialize in building capital stack and provide capital advisory services for large-scale real estate development projects. And we work with family offices, private capital, private equity firms globally, and my area of concentration in Asia Pacific and Vietnam. So so that's a little bit background about us, and we also have a operation team in EB5 and immigration investment in Vietnam and Asia. So that's a little bit background of, we have 2 legends today, so let's start with our very first question. Joe, so tell us, what do you see happening with the interest rate and the impact on the market?
Well, you know, there's a funny story. With real estate, going back and looking at historical perspectives is pretty important. Because I think Bill and I both would agree that real estate tends to do this in cycles. And the story I tell, I started selling real estate when I was 19 years old in 1973. Interest rates in 1973 were 7.25%. Nobody thought that was high. Nobody thought it was low. It was just what it was. So we sold tons of houses. Nobody ever thought anything about it. When I got married in 1981, I bought my first house that my wife and I were going to live in. The interest rate was 13.5%. It was a negative AM mortgage. Bill knows what that means. Whatever you couldn't pay, they just added it onto the balance. It was a real cool thing for the lender. But the point I want to make is we sold tons of houses. Yeah, we knew the rates were high, but what was my alternative? Renting? It still made more sense to buy. So what I think, it's just my personal opinion, welcome to the new rates. I think those rates are going to sit anywhere from 5 on up for some time. The United States was doing quantitative easing for 10 years, and they would pour money into the economy in the billions. When you do that, you're going to hold rates artificially low. And that's what we've had. At great rates, 3.5%, 3%, it's crazy. I've got a big house I own in Austin, Texas, and my mother-in-law doesn't understand why I don't pay off the note. And I said, well, it's 2.5%. 2.5% fixed rate, insane. But why would I pay that note off when I can put money out there in the joint venture and go make whatever? So I think where we are today, you're in a new interest rate environment because they're not doing any quantitative easing now. So those rates are going to find a more natural high. What do you think?
I look at where rates are today. I mean, I'm an old timer like you. I think I started in the business in the late 70s, early 80s, and bought my first house in the late 70s. And Texas still had a usury cap at 10, and so I was able to assume the mortgage on my first house at 9 7/8, which was quite a deal. But where rates sit today is below the median of where they've been in my career. And I've managed to make a career of 45 years. Right. I've managed to, transact on plenty of real estate. Our firm has done over 1,000 transactions in 31 years. And, we'll do some transactions this year in a high rate environment. Right. We've had to adjust our thinking. I probably differ a little bit, but not massively. I think rates will moderate a little bit over the next 12 to 18 months. I think that the governments of the world are going to find they're under pressure because they've all borrowed so much money during COVID and spent so much money that we didn't have. And I think that candidly, they're going to have to drop rates, or they're crowding out discretionary spending. And if you're an elected official and you don't have discretionary spending, your electorate doesn't need you. So I think there will be some downward pressure, but I don't think it'll be dramatic. I was telling somebody at lunch, I think you could see, rates with you could see home mortgages with in the 4s, maybe even sub 4, but not sub 3. I don't think you see sub 3 again, and not unless there's some other crisis. But it just requires us to rethink. I mean, I can buy an apartment building today with positive leverage. I can borrow in the low 5s. I can get a 5.5 to 6 cap if I'm shopping wisely. Maybe out here it's a 5 and a 5, and I've got neutral. But people will take neutral leverage on commercial real estate today, on good commercial real estate bought well, with the idea that we're not going to be able to add a lot of supply, and so you're going to have some pricing pressure on rents. Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to you just have to adapt. There'll be some people that get hurt as a result of these rates that we're not prepared. They don't have they borrowed short and floated, and they're gonna feel a lot of pain. I read an article the other day that There's 350,000 apartment loans in the country that are now not meeting their debt service covenants. That is, they're not generating enough rents to pay the mortgage. That means there's going to be some buildings for sale. And, I've made my living when there's distress, and so I'm okay.
Thank you very much, Bill, for sharing your perspective. And then next question, Joe. I'm pretty sure all of us here want to hear from your expertise and knowledge. What the real estate investment trend should we be aware in the U.S. within the next 6 or 12 months?
That kind of is where you get into and define your asset classes. I'm not so sure I'd buy any big offices in downtown LA unless I can get them at a great price, okay? And understand something. Years ago, I spoke in Odessa, which is in the middle of the Permian Basin in Texas. Fred Gage, an old guy, this guy was maybe 80, in the real estate business. And I asked him a question. I said, Fred, how's the market doing? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, is it good or bad? He said, there's no such thing as a good or bad market. I said, what do you mean? He said, it's only a buyer's market or it's a seller's market. That's a very wise comment. Because what you're now at, you're 12 years into a 7-year expansion, okay? Pandemic hit and immediately redefined everything because, and this really gets back into the question about office space. Where do we think office space is going to go? I think there's permanent change to that. That's obvious. All I got to do is drive within a quarter mile of this building, and there's going to be office buildings that there's no one in. So when the pandemic hit, for 4 years, many of you have been going to office buildings, grabbing a cup of coffee, opening your laptop, and talking on your cell phone, right? Then the pandemic hit. Everybody went home, and guess what? We did the same thing. Only we didn't have to go to Starbucks to buy the coffee. Got our coffee, opened our laptop, talked on the mobile phone, and voila, nothing really changed. So do I think that's going to impact the office class? Absolutely. Everything's changed. Everybody's going to have to define what does a flex office environment mean to you. And it's going to be different for every business. And do I think they figured it out? Nah, not yet. And as I've often said, and Ann's heard me say this at Family Office Club, there's 4 basic personalities in this room. Every single one of you have one of those personalities as a lead indicator for yourself. 2 of those personalities don't work well at home. They just don't. The other 2, okay. Engineer, fine. Send me home. Give me my little speaker. Turn off the light. And I'll draw on my board all day long. And that's what they do. That personality works great at home. But the CEO, there's a reason Jamie Dimon is sitting in Midtown Manhattan in the office going, where is everybody? CEO personality can't work from home. So what's going to happen is everybody's going to have to redo their job descriptions based on the personalities they have for what jobs and really get a handle on, if they're going to come in the office, what are they going to be doing? In other words, they're going to have to revamp their businesses to a new flex office environment. What do you think?
Well, I'll go 2 directions here. One is, where do I see the market? Where the question was next 12 to 18 months. Yes. Look, we're still firm believers in the industrial market. We still think that there's been a structural shift. It's accelerated e-commerce, and there's just a lot of space that needs to be built to satisfy the demand of those, logistics delivery firms. And so there'll be a substantial amount of new construction in that arena and investment opportunity. Housing also, here in California, we've had kind of a structural supply shortage. So I think there's Still great opportunities there for rental housing over for sale, although for sale housing is doing very well today here in California, but it's primarily new housing.
Right.
The resale market is really limited because roughly 40 to 50% of the people who have a mortgage below 3%, and there's little incentive to sell your home. But I do want to tag on to the office discussion. I'm actually so negative on office, it might be getting close to time to start looking at it. I think that a lot of the building, but office is going to be the market of the haves and the have-nots. Good buildings in good locations, and I mean good buildings, a really good building. Not what used to be called a Class A, but a new, has a great place, like, a little bit like this campus where you actually want to come here.
Right.
And that's where the office buildings are. We moved into a new office park a year and a half ago, and it's new, it's modern, we have great Zen spaces outside. And, I looked at it as a CEO of the company, is it was a way to recruit and retain talent. And I think that it's functioning for that. And if I compared where I am today to where I was 18 months ago in physical place, even though I could spend a little less money, there's no comparison. I don't think my people would come back to the office. We work mostly in the office, but we still have a number of people that are hybrid working. I think that works for certain jobs better than others, as you said. But I think that the office market is substantially oversupplied. And so, this is the one place I would be reticent, unless you really knew what you're doing, to go into. If you looked, I mean, every week there's an announcement of another building here in downtown that's gone into default. New York City, there's, the numbers I've heard in New York City, the market's about 400 million square feet in New York City market, and they think that the demand is about 200 million. So roughly every other building needs to go away in New York. And I don't know whether that number is right, but assume that they're even directionally correct, and it's 100 million square feet that has to go away. It's got a big structural shift and a lot of capital evaporating. So you want to be on the right side of these trades, but I do still think I'm a long-term believer in real estate. The interest rate question is a tough one for me because I generally answer it in the same way. If I knew where interest rates were going to go, I'd be over at PIMCO trading bonds because it's a lot easier than buying and selling real estate.
Right.
So you just want to not get hurt in the climate you're in and finance things long enough to make sure that you can affect your business plan.
Thank you. That is amazing. Thank you for sharing. So talking about global capital market and how we've seen there's a lot of private capital market like dry up today, I want to hear your, Joe. So what is driving the foreign capital today?
If I had to say, Phoebe, I think we're in 62 countries now, and so we're talking with a lot of these people. Safety, retention of capital, very, very high on the list. No matter how much trouble we're having here, the U.S. of A. is still one of the safest places to go make an investment. Real estate especially. The other thing I would tell you is there's a lot of political upheaval. There's a lot of movement. We had two groups in our office 2 months ago. One was out of Chile. The other was Argentina. These people control vast amounts of capital, family office type scenario, and they're saying, Joe, we need to get our money out of there. It's because they've got governmental people being elected that they're very fearful of is what could happen. But it's just, we're still very stable here. I mean, we had a guy in our office from Spain the other day, and Richard, my development partner, was in the room, and he was saying, yeah, we've got an inflation rate here in the U.S. right now. That was when it was 9%. And the guy laughed out loud. 9%? You're worried about 9%? Because, I mean, where he was, it was like 23%. So it's the stability I think they're coming here for. And really, a lot of the asset classes they like, multifamily. I mean, we've got a shortage, not just in California, single family. That shortage is all over the country. And as Bill pointed out, 40% of these people refinance their house. So if they've got a rate that's below 4, that's what's been holding prices generally, is there's just not enough for sale. So what the foreign capital sees is a very safe place to put the capital and with good return. Plus, I will tell you, they're more patient. It's very patient money that we see that comes from overseas. They've got time to wait.
You know, we deal both directly and then indirectly through a lot of the private equity businesses with foreign capital and the needs thereof. I think it is a perception of safety, and I don't think it's just about safety. Like, we have a rule of law here. Real estate has a very set rule of law, and so if you buy something, you're going to get to that asset's going to be yours.
Right.
And I think that helps people feel comfortable. It's why you see, particularly like here in LA, a lot of very high-end homes trading to billionaires. A lot of them are never even going to live in these houses. It's a place to park capital, just like their stock portfolio. And I literally live in a rental in Laguna Beach that belongs to a billionaire, and I'm the only person that's ever lived in the house. He built the house brand new, and he never moved in. Yeah. And I've lived there for 10 and a half years. So I'm a real estate guy renting from a non-real estate guy, because my rent is far less than the cost of capital to own that. So I'm like, this is way better. I'll go put my money to work in apartments. So, I do think that it's appealing to people. I think there's a belief that, although returns are not as high as, maybe people perceive they could make in China when it was go-go days in China, and I would tell somebody, you could make a 15 or 20% return on a project, and they're like, why would I do that? Well, now those people are talking to us because they're not seeing those outsized returns any longer. That market is muted a bit. And so I think there's opportunity, and also for the very wealthy, they're looking to spread their wealth across multiple countries. They're not making a bet on one place. And the institutional partners are doing the same thing. There's lots of capital out there, whether it's international or domestic, but there is, I think the last time I looked, through the private equity world, there's about $240 billion of dry powder on the market, waiting for deals. And so, it'll keep pricing will fall a bit in some of the product types and some of the markets. But like Joe said, you have not seen a big drop. We had a huge run up in 22, in the first half of 22, and then it came back down. Right. And pricing finished the year across many markets at roughly where it began the year at. But it's started to move back up from there. Because there's just not much product on the market. The new home product, you can't reproduce it with inflation any cheaper, so it's continuing to drive pricing. So I think that there's a home here for foreign capital. I think we try to build our system where it's user-friendly, and I can tell you we at our firm welcome it and have worked with foreign capital for now 3 decades.
Thank you so much for sharing. And then also the last question, digital evolution. We believe that the future of real estate is going to be digital. So how you think is the technology impact the real estate today and likely to?
No, why don't you go first? You can talk tech.
Yeah, not really.
We both look too old to talk tech.
I think that real estate has been the slowest to evolve, to adopt technology. It's clearly moving that way, but it has been slow. Now, over my career, I was at the beginning of tech. My first computer was an Apple IIe with a floppy disk. Go look that up for most of you. You can look it up in Wikipedia, floppy disk. And there was a program called VisiCalc, and it was there was really a great lesson in VisiCalc because they actually had a better program than Excel, but they forgot to do one thing. They never got a copyright or trademark on it.
Never got a patent.
And Bill Gates stole it. Maybe not him personally, but his engineers stole it. But it was moved so slowly that literally you could watch it ripple through the screen when you were doing a spreadsheet. Now I get these massive spreadsheets. The spreadsheets are one part of it, all the other technology, but I think, the ways to manage real estate, to handle the technology of dealing with energy consumption, because real estate is going to have to move to be green. We're actually one of the, if you look at the world of carbon production, new construction is actually up there with transportation in impacting the global carbon supply. And so we're going to, as an industry, have to resolve that. And you're seeing little pieces of it done today, but we're going to have to make some technological leaps. I think the one area where we will see technology, I think modular will ultimately figure out how to get done and how to get done at a cost competitive. Today, modular is getting done, but it is not cost competitive. So the only reason it works is because speed to market, and you'll use it there, or you'll use it in a site where it's just complicated to build. But somebody's going to figure out modular. There's a lot of other technology out there that'll happen, but I think we're the last guys to be thinking about tech, I got to tell you.
Yeah,
a couple of old guys up here. And
we're waiting to watch it all come. I say that, we just bought the Placer AI analytic tool, which Sing may know about that. And that's very cool because it tells me where you guys have been going with your mobile phone. So I can look at a site in Nashville, Tennessee, and look at a CVS pharmacy. And by the information we have through your credit card purchases and your mobile phone traveling, we can tell where all of the customers at that CVS, where they live, where they came from. So I can match that to a vacant lot that we have in Austin, Texas, and we can look at the data through AI and tell that if that's a setup that would work well for the CVS, and then I can call CVS at their headquarters and go, hey, I've got a site whose schematic and platform matches 98% of your CVS store up there in Nashville, Tennessee. And believe me, they listen. They go, really? Yes. So it's coming. And believe me, I'd like nothing more than to call ChatGPT and say, hey, you got somebody you got a show at 3 o'clock, Sarasota. I got a plane, I got to catch to Hawaii. Just go put the deal together. Call me when the commission's ready. I'm waiting for the day.
We are using programs like ChatGPT, to write some marketing materials. It helps us. Our team's using it to write investor reporting. So, it's not a standalone, but we are starting to incorporate it. So I didn't want to say that we don't embrace technology, because we really do. But it's been slow to evolve.
Thank you very much. I know the time is up, but would like to wrap up the panel. Joe, if you would like to share with the audience here, any last few words. Especially, I know that you're a land development expert, and your land fund. We review it, and it's just amazing and phenomenal what you put together. So if you can quickly share.
Yeah, basically what Phoebe's talking about. We look at real estate. We look at the cycles. And if we're on the backside of a market, Bill would say the same thing, I think. It's a good time to go buy land. It's a great time to go buy land, because even if we have a recession, and this would be one of the weirdest recessions we've ever had, and we got 11 million jobs out there we can't fill, I think it's going to be fairly short-lived. But keep in mind, all real estate is local. Okay, certain markets could have an incredible market where 500 miles away it's not so good. So you really have to look at where you're going to make these purchases and what you're going to do. The one thing I've always said about real estate that I love is two things. Number one, real estate is a learnable investment. Nobody can explain to me why Tesla stock is priced at what it is versus GM. Okay? And I think Elon's a pretty cool guy. But you can't really explain why it's selling for, what is it, 15 times, 20 times GM. But with real estate, the things that create value, the bulk of it is public data. Now, you need to know how to interpret the data, but the bulk of it is public data. You can learn the jobs, supply and demand, city policies, water, wastewater, all of the things that drive real estate values, you can go find out. You can learn. Whereas, why is Tesla priced at it what it is? I think there's a big piece of human nature in that, where they think that industry is going to go. But I can't necessarily depend on that from an investment perspective. Second thing I was going to tell you about real estate, and that's this. The difference between stocks and real estate is insider trading in real estate is perfectly legal.
Thank you, Joe.
You just stole my line.
I probably learned it from you.
Oh, okay, Bill. So,
Now that he stole my line, now I got to.
Another line. You got a ton of lines.
Now, I first of all say I'm incredibly blessed to have been in this. I never intended to have this be a career. I got a real estate license while I was getting my MBA. I had this plan to go into corporate finance, and that plan didn't really pan out. And I got offers for less than I was making part-time as a realtor. And I said, well, maybe I'll give it a whirl. And that was, 45 years ago. So sometimes you just get good fortune in life, but it also comes with hard work. Look, I think there'll be interesting opportunities as the market moves ahead. I do see such opportunities. As you know, Phoebe, we just recently bought a piece of a shopping center down in Orange County in Westminster. And we didn't buy it because we love the shopping center business. We love it because we don't love the shopping center business, but we love the land and the land's location and the uniqueness of it. And that's what a little bit of your stock analogy, I tell people, if you want to buy Tesla or Microsoft or GM and you want to buy it at a certain price, you can wait for that price. And you may or may not get it, but there's nothing unique about a share of Tesla stock. Because every share, well, maybe there's classes, but of the common share classes, they're all the same. One share is the same. If you buy it on Tuesday or you buy it on Wednesday, that share of stock's the same. But when something comes available in real estate that is unique, Westminster Mall for us was unique. It was irreplaceable real estate, and it doesn't come around every week. It might come around once a generation. Last time this traded was 50 years ago. So, I'm probably not going to be here for the next trade. So I look at real estate as what unique attributes of each particular piece of real estate exist, and what can I do to maximize the income value of that particular piece of real estate. And I think it's the only business that I know where I can take something that looks pretty ordinary to some person, but I can figure out how to make it less than the ordinary. And so, given that he stole my other line, I'm not going to let him down for that. But
yes, we need another line from Bill.
I said, what our business has been about is making the invisible visible. We see things that other people don't see, and then we create on that site, and then all of a sudden people are like, I could have had a V8. I drove by that site. I could have done that. And I said, but you didn't, because you didn't see what we saw. And so that's what our real secret sauce is at our firm.
Thank you, Bill. And now it's time we'll welcome any question from the audience for either Joe or Bill. Yes, please.
I'll let you answer the open door question, but before you get to that, here's the whole thing with open door. The most interesting thing that Gary and I have to deal with is that when Wall Street decides they want to get in our business, which that's open door, all of them, they don't have a profit motive, okay? What they do is, look, we'll give you millions. Just go create market share. Uber, Lyft, Amazon. For a traditional business like us, that's the hardest thing we have to deal with. It's when Wall Street steps in and says, okay, here's an iBuyer scenario. You're going to buy the home, fix it up, resell it for a profit. I don't know about Bill, but the first thing Gary and I said to ourselves is, have you guys ever done this? Because anybody in the audience who's ever rehabbed a house knows what I'm saying. That is not an easy business model. And of course, most of them now are in trouble because guess what? Markets do this and they do what else? Ooh, they do this. Yeah. So if your business is buy a home, fix it up, and sell it, the market that does this, I don't know how that works. I mean, I feel like Warren Buffett back in 2000 when he said, I can't make a tech investment because I can't figure out their business model.
Yeah.
And
look, it's not a unique business. I mean, home builders have had trade-in programs that they've used for years. Again, like, other things like modular construction, will somebody figure it out? Maybe, but they're going to have to figure it out at wider margins, and then the margins become less attractive because when they figure out the real holding cost of that, it's like when you watch the fix and flip programs. They never put transaction costs in there of telling you what the money cost and what it costs to get out of the deal. If you want to, fix and flip's a great business, but you better have the right model and you better have the right metrics. And that's where look, Zillow got pounded in that business. It did not do well for their stock. Can somebody figure it out? Maybe, but I think it's just an idea to try to solve. Look, as long as I've been in the business, people have been saying commissions are too high, they're going to squeeze commissions. And I would argue that commissions have not appreciably changed, not by more than 50.
They've changed a little bit.
A little bit.
But it gets back to the theory of, how many of y'all have done your own appendectomy? And the point is this, I love the tech guys, I love them. But the key with a lot of people in tech who get into real estate is, they look at a real estate transaction and say, well, it's really not that hard. It's just a buyer and it's a seller. And anybody who's ever bought their own home knows it doesn't work like that. Because human nature comes into it. It's more involved than it looks. Where tech has been fabulous is in things that you can simplify that are not massively complicated. Depositing a check at the bank. Yes, you could take a picture of it on your phone and you can get it deposited in the bank. You could do that. But going and selling a piece of real estate where every single piece of real estate is different. It's different. Every piece is different. Every seller is different. And so as tech gets involved in the business like that, sometimes what we see is they've lost sight of the complexity of what it is they're trying to simplify. And that's where they tend to get into trouble.
Well, thank you very much, Joe.